Jessica Geller.
And I'm Virginia Toledo.
And we are Toledo Geller Interiors. We are excited to walk you through this project that we recently completed.
This tour is of a house located in Green Lawn, New York. It's right along the Long Island Sound and across the pond from Greenwich, Connecticut. Our clients first found us on Instagram. We had this virtual meeting. She didn't think that we would take a job on Long Island. She shared photos, or she walked us around with her laptop of her foyer. And she had those black and white marble checkered floors, which we're suckers for. She actually thought we wouldn't like them.
She could appreciate them, but they felt too formal within the context of the current architecture and the space in the house. We wanted to show her how we could preserve that flooring, but maybe take away some of the other elements in the home, then give that checkerboard floor a whole brand new life.
Another challenge we had was that the client really wanted to do a lighter floor. However, the floors that they had were Brazilian cherry. So they were starting with a very red floor. And oftentimes we can just refinish those floors and give someone a much lighter look without having to rip up all of the floors in a 5,000-6,000 square foot house. That's a huge investment. We had to come up with a plan to create a space for her that still felt bright and airy, but use darker floors. Maintain the cherry, but stain it in a warm chocolate brown that could sort of just be this great basis for all of these lighter materials to contrast against.
When we enter this home off of this very wide porch, we are greeted by this beautiful black and white checkerboard floor. We decided to take one paint color floor to ceiling in this space instead of highlighting the differentiation between the paneling and the walls. We'd also toyed a little bit with wallpaper. We lost that battle.
We sure did.
Right off of the foyer, we won in the powder room.
That's right.
Where we were able to introduce a beautiful floral with lots of bold colors and movement, and we had a little bit more fun. We always say powder rooms are the little jewel boxes of the home, and we are able to take a little bit more of a risk and push our clients further there.
Yeah, and what was really neat was that bathroom had a smaller version of the larger black and white marble checkerboard floor. I love that whoever did that at some point did that, and we were able to use it and incorporate it. And then at the end of that foyer, we had a blank wall, and this was a very long foyer. We opted for a chest that was antique inspired with the lines and the finish on it. But then above that, we gave it a mirror that had a sort of like a linen fabric material that almost looked like denim.
Yeah.
So it's that balance of a little fancy, a little casual.
We had lots of blank walls, which were ripe for putting artwork on. And so some of that artwork that we selected have personal meaning to our clients, a lot of nautical and boating references there, and locations that are special and meaningful to them. It's always a really nice personal touch.
Off of this foyer is the dining room of the home. This room wasn't even going to be designed or decorated in the original scope of work. And like often happens, once we're in the home and doing all of these things, our clients start realizing that this room needs help and needs to be addressed.
Especially in this particular layout, because this whole section of the home unfolds one room after the next after the next.
The biggest sort of like elephant in the room here was this oversized oval shaped coffered ceiling. And it just wasn't our client's style. We couldn't just go ripping everything out of this home.
Right, especially because this room was an add-on. It was not part of our original scope. So we were already kind of creeping up there with the budget. And we said, why don't we just treat this as it's all in shadow, and we'll create almost this envelope or an ice cream sandwich, if you will. That's what we had been lovingly referring to it as.
We called it as the ice cream sandwich.
Yeah, so we painted the ceiling in this very rich cocoa color. It's so beautiful. And this is before chocolate was having this big moment, which we're seeing all over the place now. It just gives a really nice feeling in the room, and then it also really helps put some of the massiveness of that ceiling in shadow, and then we're not really noticing it as much as a focal point as it was.
Agreed. By having that very dark ceiling and the dark floor, the focus really becomes on that center portion of the room that's really done in light colors to brighten it up. It's also decorated with this cocoa bead chandelier. So that was something that we wanted to touch upon as well, because we aren't so far off of the water here where the home is located and our clients are boaters. We had these really soft touches towards nautical references, and this cocoa bead chandelier is one of them. The new dining chairs that they have sort of like this rope basket weave upholstery on the back portion. And then thinking about even the dining table. We have loved that dining table for so long, and finally we were able to use it.
Yeah.
What we weren't able to use though, I will tell you, you know what I'm gonna say?
I do know what
because
you're
I'm
gonna
still
say.
a little salty about it, is I proposed yet again a folding screen in this room. It was the perfect solution. There's some clear story windows in this room on one elevation, thought it was perfect, and it got nixed again.
I think we've had to have spoken about this in tours before, where we're saying that you have been dying to get a folding screen.
Perhaps, and no one has.
If you have a desire to have a folding screen in your home, give her a call. She has been trying to do this, it must be 10 years.
At least.
But guess what? She doesn't have one in her house.
Not yet, but I'm going to because it's apparently the only way I'm ever gonna get it. I swear.
Another element in this room that's really important is the area rug. We are in a transition space. While there is this long foyer that can lead you into the kitchen, it sort of feels like when you come in through the front door, the natural progression is through the dining space.
That's right.
So it is a high traffic area. Our clients are not super formal people. So we picked a flat weave rug that has a little bit more of a casual nature to it. So when you pair it with some of the more formal elements, again, we're doing that yin and yang where these things play with one another and help create this even middle ground in style.
This beautiful rug has the most beautiful shades of green in it, olive and sage and what have you, and we use that in the powder room, so that color has woven itself into many of the rooms here. And where it also had a moment to shine was on a custom mirror that we had made, and that's become a big signature here at the firm, where we can't find the perfect mirror and we're having our workroom make them, and now they're feeling like they're mirror fabricators all of a sudden. But this one has a really chunky round shape.
So good.
Yes, and it's upholstered in the best sort of like emerald green, hunter green leather.
Moving on from the dining room, we are entering into the breakfast room. And this room is one that was kind of a pain point for our clients because of this long tunnel effect that the whole side of the house has, where there's one room unfolding onto the next. It's right in between the dining room and the kitchen. They had a small table kind of floating in the space. It only fit the 4 family members, wasn't doing enough for them. Of course, our solution in many dining spaces with young family members is a banquette.
The previous table and chairs impeded the traffic flow. Yes, we love banquettes because they're super practical for families, but especially in this situation, it pushed the seating over to the right side of the room.
Yep.
And now we had a clear traffic pattern from that dining room into the kitchen, which is heavily traversed all day by everyone. And it was a pretty massive banquette because it spanned the whole entire side of that room.
Yeah, I mean, you can easily fit 2-3 families
Yeah.
at one time.
So we upholstered it in a really chunky way. It's not a petite banquette by any stretch.
Yeah, it's not delicate.
Right. The upholstery there also boasts a really pretty green color. And beyond that, above that sort of sweet banquette nook, it, really truly feels like a little bed and breakfast boutique kind of hotel vibe in there. We use these cafe curtains done in this sort of like painterly stripe, which is just really so sweet. But I think what we really served up here was a ton more practicality and storage for the client, because when they first reached out to us, that was what they led with.
Yes, we have this breakfast bar. It also has a large section devoted to toys, arts and crafts, games that can eventually roll over to some other sort of storage, but for right now, it is serving a major need for them. In addition, this breakfast bar has a beverage refrigerator and 2 dishwasher drawers, which make this feel like a nice separation from the kitchen. Something that's very practical, very usable,
Totally.
but it's really right off of their main hub of the home.
And what you might also notice in some of the before and afters is that this room previously had a really heavy coffered ceiling like many of the other rooms. Because this room was much smaller, the coffered ceiling felt even heavier in here. Our clients really wanted these cabinets to go to the ceiling and not stop at the underside of the soffit. They felt that looked a little dated. So we removed the soffit entirely and then retrimmed that room out in an oak crown molding, which which we've loved. We haven't been able to do that in a really long time. And two, what that allowed us to do was to change the lighting plan in this room. Now that we had a clear circulation path, we were able to further delineate that with 3 flush mounts, and then we gave them these chocolate lanterns over the larger breakfast table that we now had.
If you know Toledo Geller at all, you know that we love wallpaper, and this home was no exception. We always play with a balance of paper and patterns and colors and what have you. This paper is beautiful because the background of the paper is white, so from a distance, it does not feel overwhelming and it feels very soft and subtle, but as you get closer, you can appreciate that there is this little texture drizzled throughout this space.
Adjacent to the breakfast room is the kitchen. And that was one of the main spaces our clients wanted us to tackle when we were first contacted. The kitchen had a few things working for it. The location of the plumbing and the appliances, essentially that triangle, were great. So we didn't have to tweak that. But what we had to address was the cabinetry and all of the other finishes in the room. So the original cabinets were solid, I guess you can say, but really outdated. So our clients actually gave us an inspiration photo from House Beautiful. And if you remember that, it was that washed oak cabinetry, and it was really beautiful. I think the house might have been a little bit more modern than theirs, but we were intent on giving them something similar within the context of their own home and its architectural style.
2 elements that this kitchen had going against it were this, again, heavy, ornate coffered ceiling that just felt like something was coming down on you, and a window that was too small in size, and it just felt all very forced around that. Naturally, the focal point of that elevation is the sink, which is in front of the window, and for it to be a small, dinky little window just did not work. That was a big architectural change that we made in this renovation, and the payoff was huge here. We also decided to frame that elevation with the quartz countertop going all the way up. This is something that allowed for a very serene palette to continue in this space. If we had a backsplash tile here, it would have been very choppy and broken up the calming and beautiful vibe that she was going for here.
Like we'd done in some of the other rooms with adding a little bit of a nautical touch here and there, we did the same in this room by incorporating caned back counter stools, and the pendants that hang over the island have the slightest little rope detail.
Leaving the kitchen, we're now in the family room, and this room is
Massive.
It is massive. I was gonna say it's like wrapped in denim.
Oh, yeah, now it is. Before, it was just massive.
Yes, they were using it as a little bit of like overflow playroom for their kids. They knew that the seating plan was not right.
That's right.
And
the
that,
sofa was way too small.
Yeah, it just was not filling the space right. It didn't accomplish what they needed to accomplish there, which was supporting people coming over and entertaining and what have you. So our color palette is blue and green, and we gave them a very large sectional in this space.
Yes. And another thing that we had to deal with here, like we had to keep dealing with in all of these other rooms, not a client, if you're listening, like we were happy with the challenge. It sounds like you're like, oh no, we have to deal with this again. We say that's why we have a job. It's great to have a challenge. This room also had the coffered ceiling, but it worked here because the room is so massive, so it could pull off that coffered ceiling. However, what it also had was a super ornate fireplace.
Oh yeah.
That thing had the chunkiest corbels and had a really deep projection. It was just all sorts of wrong. It was the focal point in the room. The television would be placed above it. We know we needed to address that. We decided to use a cast stone fireplace.
So pretty.
Yeah, it was actually our first time really using one, and it worked out really well here. It has the look of a limestone, but half the weight, so much easier to install. And we eliminated all that molding that was above the fireplace before, and now the TV is just simple and clean above that.
We also had the transom windows.
Yes.
Yeah, on that same wall. We wanted to balance that out. We put 2 massive chests, which are great for storage.
What was there before those chests?
You tell me.
The built-ins. Do you remember those guys? Yep, I know. It's a while before from when we start to when we finish, guys. So some of these things we forget about. But yeah, we had those built-ins there. They were purposeful. They were filled to the rim.
Right. But they did nothing for the style.
That's right. And those transom windows above these chests, In a perfect world, we would have loved those windows to not be transom because there really isn't a reason for them to be transom windows there. What we could do was at least change those windows because they had a sort of
they did.
That scrolly kind of almost like a stained glass look to
without
them.
the stain.
Without the stain.
Totally.
And so we changed them to a simple mullion window with a very simple grid, and we had them done in a black finish. And so now they look clean and current and just sort of quieter backdrop.
And when we accessorized, we played with the scale of the vases that are on top so that we're really filling up that space in between tabletop and the bottom of the window.
That's a great decorating trick, just eating up that volume of space. Our clients' need for storage still remained. They had those built-ins before, and we now gave them those cabinets that were great, but they needed even more storage. And so we coupled a pair of oversized arched cabinets on one wall, and they're really functional for them.
One of my personal favorite tasks as a designer is searching for the perfect art for our clients' homes. Our client has a soft spot for Jackson Hole. It's hard to tell because this room is so massive, but the art is also really massive. It's about 5 feet. It has this really soft, ethereal quality to the picture itself. It looks like a foggy morning, and it pulls in those deep greens and lush greens and some blues just so perfectly, but it's also a meaningful spot to our client.
That's important. This is not the first time we've converted a former playroom into a bar. This is what we did yet again. It's either the kids have grown out of the space or kids make you drink more, one or the other. I knew you were gonna say something like that. You know, it depends your family vibe. This space was sort of sandwiched in between a formal living room and a second entry. And so from that space, you can see that black and white checkered floor that we've been loving this whole time. And it was previously filled with kids' work desks and a bunch of toys. Our clients finally felt that they've aged out of this and the room could be more purposeful. They do love to entertain, and the fact that it's off of this living room where they often entertain some of their guests, a bar seems really appropriate. Like many of the other rooms, this room also had a coffered ceiling, but we were going to keep it. And we were tasked with trying to marry the cabinetry with that. And we think we came up with a clever idea that maintains a sort of freestanding quality to the upper section while still having that built-in effect that we were obviously after. We painted the cabinetry the most beautiful shade of blue. It's really deep but not quite navy and gives this really sophisticated vibe to that space.
The bar also has some nice little details that we included, like the latch hardware. It has 2 beverage refrigerator drawers. The backsplash is a combination of 2 beautiful marbles, a very pale blue Celeste Azul and a white Vassos, which really gives this bar room an elevated feel to it.
Thanks for joining us on another Toledo Geller home tour.
Be sure to follow us on all of our social media channels at Toledo Geller. We'll see you soon.